And welcome into Hoopsville, everybody, on a Thursday, December 11th, 2014. Welcome into the show. Hope you are having a good evening, as it were. Certainly appreciate any of you who are tuning in. Whether it is live on the show, where you might be watching this show on demand on YouTube, or, of course, on d3hoops.com, or you might even be listening to our podcasts. We certainly appreciate you supporting us. Update on our podcast. We do have that going now through SoundCloud. Hoping to get it going through iTunes. We're running into some technical glitches with that, but we're working on it, and so hopefully you'll be able to enjoy it that way as well. But that's all coming up, and so you can enjoy those. Please share those with your friends. We're giving you as many options as possible to enjoy the show here this season. It's part of the improvements that came from much of the fundraising that we did last year, and we certainly appreciate everybody's support with that. You're going to see a few more tricks with that we got going this year, including Skyping with live interviews with guests, even pre-taping those with Skype. But those are some of those things you'll get to see a little bit of this year, or in this show, I should say, here tonight. Again, you can see we are still in the process of decorating our studio. This will look a lot different when we're back on the air in 2015, as we'll have a few more pieces in place to be able to decorate things well. The other thing that certainly came in that we are certainly proud of is we got our number 22 Lauryn Hill jersey. The Ohio Wesleyan jersey is what we got. Wonderfully signed by Lauryn Hill herself. We certainly appreciate that. We were more than happy to make a donation to the cause, as it were. This will hang in our studios, and it will have a permanent place in our studios as we honor Lauren, who is still with us and fighting, and we certainly appreciate her spirit. We'll hang that in a place so you can always see it behind us. A lot of the other stuff can change out. We can change out the shirts. We can change out other items. We're going to put shelves in there. But Lauryn Hill jersey from Ohio Wesleyan will have a permanent place there, obviously. Per the fundraiser, stay tuned. We're going to probably do a little bit more of that this year, but stay tuned for that down the road as well. We'll have more information as we hit 2015. But let's talk about 2014, shall we? Another week of upsets galore. I don't think it's necessarily an upset. Number 4, Augustana defeating number 1, Wisconsin Whitewater. That game, or that result, was in double overtime last night on Wednesday, and it was a thriller to say the least. Certainly a job well done by Augie to get that victory at home against Whitewater. That is a significant victory, because if all you men's basketball fans and followers don't remember, Wisconsin Whitewater and the WIAC are now in the Central region, what was called the Midwest region. Remember, it's been like that on the women's side for a number of years. Now the men's side mimics that on the women's side, and so that is a major regional game. Certainly it already had regional ramifications in the past. It has more ramifications now, certainly, as you now have, positioning when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Could it have an ultimate effect? Who knows if it changes anything? But certainly that has a ramification this year, maybe a little bit more than we've had in the past. So that was a big game, to say the least, for those two teams. And hats off to Augustana to bounce back from the loss against Central to get that victory. Wisconsin Whitewater's first Division III loss, their second loss overall. We'll see how the voters deal with that. They had just moved back into number 1, as I predicted last show they probably would. Who's the new number 1? I mean, you look at the top 25 from last week. The most votes went to Amherst, but they were second. The most number 1 votes went to Amherst. They were second. So does that mean Amherst is your default number 1? I'll tell you right now, I've got a team ahead of Amherst that I would maybe consider putting number 1. But here's the other thing. Amherst lost to Brandeis. And that's that, conversation. So maybe it's a dark horse that gets number 1 this time. Maybe the votes go all over the place, as we clearly are seeing top 25 voters with not a full understanding of who the top teams are. And I'll tell you right now, I don't know who the top teams are. I think it's a very, very challenging year, to say the least. So we will see how this all plays itself out, obviously, in the next vote, which comes out Monday. I don't think I'm going on a limb here. I believe Monday's vote may be the last one for 2014. There may be one on the 22nd that comes out. The next one would definitely come out the 5th. The question is whether we take 3 weeks off between votes or 2 weeks off. I'm not sure what the answer there is going to be. Have to check with Pat Coleman, but the holidays always do that. We take a break for the holidays. We'll see where the vote comes into play this year and where the games are, et cetera. I mean, if there's not a lot of games between the 15th and 22nd, not much point in voting. But then again, you also don't want to go from the 15th into the 5th between polls. So we'll check with Pat sometime down the road, and we'll find out when the next vote is. But the 15th, obviously, is our next top 25. So, plenty of upsets. Ohio Wesleyan lost to Trine. Not a loss you expected. I mean, they had played Denison. They played Ohio Wesleyan. They had played other top 10, now top 20 teams and gotten victories. Now they lose to Trine. They had risen quickly in the polls. Another big game coming up this weekend. Illinois Wesleyan will be taking on Chicago. Chicago already has 3 losses on the season. Not that a loss to Illinois Wesleyan would hurt them that much. Certainly won't help them in a very tough regional ranking now that the WIAC is in place. But it's a big game. If Chicago wins that reevaluates everything, I think, especially Illinois Wesleyan. So lots to look at this year. There's been plenty of moments throughout the year on the men's side. Women's side, pretty status quo. No real surprises. FDU Florham solidified its first place a little bit more, gained some first place votes. Thomas More went ahead of Amherst. That was a little surprising. But then again, I think people are just trying to figure some things out. I think some top 25 voters decided to change their minds on who the number 1 team was, despite no losses. And so Thomas More moved into second ahead of Amherst. But I don't think that's a make or break. I don't think that's an end of the world type thing. That's just voters trying to figure things out at the beginning of the year. So, but a little bit more status quo on the women's side, to be sure. And so on and so forth. If you want to interact with us, don't forget you can do so on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can join us on email, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Those are the ways you can interact with us, and we certainly welcome any and all conversations you may have. I know that Katie Crump tweeted out that she's looking forward to hearing from a couple of different basketball coaches here. She's the assistant women's basketball coach at Washington College. She's looking forward to the interview with Kelly Lewandowski from Salisbury, and she's looking forward to Coach Scott from Lynchburg. They're all coming up here on the show. We have Lynchburg's Coach Hillary Scott going to join us live on the show. Also going to talk to Brandeis's Coach Brian Meehan and their big win over Amherst. We'll talk to Salisbury women's basketball coach Kelly Lewandowski, and we'll also talk to Wash U women's basketball coach Nancy Fay. And then we'll also talk to Yeshiva's men's basketball coach about their program and just the incredible start of the season that they have had there. The Maccabees are 7-3 overall, 5-1. Coach Elliott in his first year there. We'll talk to him about coaching his alma mater. We'll talk to him about this significant start for the program and what it means overall for this very unique program. Jewish school, obviously, if you don't know much about Yeshiva, somewhat similar in nature to a Messiah or a Hope or a Calvin or the Wheaton schools, though maybe a little bit more on the religious side of things, certainly with the Jewish side of things. We'll talk to him about that and their terrific start. You cannot shake your head at 7-3, 5-1, especially when it includes wins over some very good schools in the Skyline or have been in the past, purchases, St. Joe's and others. And so we'll talk to him coming up here on the show. A reminder that we will be off the air for the rest of this year, 2014. As next week we will be tied up with the Stag Bowl coverage and Gallardi's trophy presentation coverage in Salem, Virginia, part of D3 Football and YD3 show efforts there. We just won't have time to be able to do a show from Salem on Thursday. We have tried the last few years. I've always come into this show saying, hey, I'm going to do my best. We'll see what happens. And I get there and go, this is insane. Well, I already know this year it's going to be insane. There's no way we're going to be able to pull it off. So we will take this next week off. We'll take the following week off as well. Really, we'll take 3 weeks off of the show, unfortunately, just due to the fact that on the 18th and the 25th and the 1st, there isn't much to talk about. However, we'll also be in Vegas. And in Vegas, at the D3Hoops.com Classic, we talked to many of the coaches and or players involved with every single team there. So as a result, you'll get a bunch of Hoopsville vignettes there, Hoopsville corner interviews, kind of like what we did at the Hoopsville Classic to tie you over for Thanksgiving. You'll get a number of interviews there. Pat Coleman and myself, we're going to be joined by Justin Sweeney as well from the Pacific Northwest. But Pat and I will probably conduct most of those interviews, and you'll get a chance to hear from those who are participating. So that's how we'll tie you over for Hoopsville. But when we come back, we'll be getting into our Sunday, Thursday coverage every Sunday and every Thursday throughout the rest of the season, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Other little note, in case you're interested, I will be going to the NCAA convention this year. It's located in Washington, D.C., or just outside Washington, D.C. at the National Harbor. We will be chatting and learning how things are progressing there. Talk to those who are involved with things, the votes, see how they all play out. There's obviously a lot on the line that affects Division III, so we'll be making our presence known and covering it there. How that will affect Hoopsville is to be determined. We may see if we can find a substitute for us that night, but nonetheless, looking forward to that. So something you can look forward to as well. Other things that have certainly garnered our attention around Division III, to say the least. I'm sorry. I said WashU was Illinois Wesleyan was playing Chicago. I'm mistaken. It's WashU playing Illinois Wesleyan. I had the UAAs backwards in my head. Chicago's got another big game. It's WashU versus Illinois Wesleyan in men's basketball, 3 versus 5. Thank you, Chris, for pointing that out. Clearly, my brain's in some other gear. Nonetheless, I appreciate that being caught. Anyway, so lots of other things have certainly caught our attention around Division III. We mentioned that certainly the top 25 is a topsy-turvy. I think I mentioned that in the first, the preseason ballot, I had something like 18 losses amongst the teams I had ranked in the top 25. I don't remember what the first week, but I think the second week I had 8 losses, which I thought was a nice improvement, only to be followed up with 11 losses going into this week's top 25 when I revoted. It's getting old to have this many losses. Again, Whitewater lost, Amherst has lost, WashU will be playing Illinois Wesleyan, so that's another top 5 loss. You by the end of the weekend, you are guaranteed 4 top 5 teams on the men's side will have taken losses this week. Guaranteed. It obviously, if Augustana were to lose on Saturday, and I don't even know if they're playing anybody, we'll quickly check that. Augustana is playing McMurray on the 16th, so they can't lose this weekend. So we can't have worse than 4 out of the 5 teams losing in the top 5 on the men's side. Ohio Wesleyan lost, so that's 5 out of 6 that will have lost. Richard Stockton is playing Rutgers Newark. You never know. Rutgers Newark's a good team. St. Thomas sitting in 8th. Emory, Dickinson, Virginia Wesleyan. Nobody has really stood up so far in the list I'm telling you about. WPI, Albertus Magnus, everybody has taken a loss. If I'm looking at this right, the only 2 teams right now that have no losses and potentially will have no losses coming in the current top 10 are WashU and Richard Stockton. Potentially, they could both take losses, certainly, by the end of the weekend. But that means you got to get down to Center at 14 without a loss so far. North Central at 16 without a loss. St. Norbert at 20 without a loss. Marietta at 25 without a loss. And there's certainly others who are getting votes who don't have losses either. But think about that. Top 10 could be, everybody could have a loss at this point in the season. I don't want to say it's unheard of, but it's not that common. Usually there's always a top part of the top 25 that we're all looking at going, of course, that's going to be, we're going to go a ways before we get a loss there. That's just not the case this year, and it's certainly surprising on the men's side of things. Whereas, again, you go back onto the women's side of things. FDU Florham, St. Thomas, Thomas More, Amherst, Tufts, WashU, Scranton, Montclair State, St. Thomas, Wheaton, NYU, Williams, George Fox. You go 12 teams before you get your first loss. Oshkosh has a loss. Hope has a loss. St. Mary's does not. DePaul has a loss. I mean, there's a litany of teams in here that don't have losses on the women's side, and the men is just it's just a ton of them left and right. So fascinating start to the season. I think on the men's side, a ton of parity. I don't think there's a lot of top teams in a sense that have risen above and taken over this year or will take over this year. I think it's going to be wide open, which is going to make the NCAA tournament in March fascinating because I don't think there's going to be clear favorites to get to the Final Four. And while certainly we're always looking to see how the bracket will affect things, and it always has an effect, I think this year it's going to have a much bigger ramification because not who is going to get knocked off, but who is going to be able to survive, I think is going to be the bigger key here. This season's going to be all about upsets per se, lots of questions, and positioning for a fascinating March, to say the least. I mean, there's still a whole litany of men's teams getting votes, from one single vote in the likes of Central, who got the win over Augustana, Wheaton, Misericordia, Gustavus Adolphus. Stevenson has 2, Whitworth has 2, DeSales has 2. It's just not a walk away. Nobody's got 600 points in the top 25 this week. Whitewater has first place by 7 votes, 9 first place. Amherst has 11 first place, and WashU has 5. This weekend, this vote going into the holidays is going to be fascinating to see who people may start trying to ride their coattails of. But again, nobody has stood up, and I think it's certainly more interesting. I think it's been a little bit more exciting that way. It's also a little bit more crazy. You can't sit there with a top 25 and sit there and go, okay, I know how this is going to work out. Or I know who I'm going to move across. Every week you're reevaluating what you do. You cannot be comfortable. I joke and I seriously talk about every year I blow up my top 25 ballot. It usually happens sometime either early January, mid-January, where I blow it up, and sometimes it gets blown up a second time. I wouldn't say I'm in the position of blowing something up in the sense that usually that means I've got some ideas of how the teams are playing out, and now it doesn't make any sense. I'm already at the point of doesn't make any sense, so I'm already moving teams around. It doesn't. I guess you could say I'm blowing up the ballot every week, for the most part. I do have some tiers, but even those aren't. I mean, this last time I voted, I certainly didn't stick to those tiers very much. So we'll see what happens. Again, Amherst losing by 20 points at home against what was a 2-5 Brandeis squad. Listen, if that's a close game, I'm not going to knock Amherst as much, but that's a 20-point game. Yeah, it was close for a while, but it was 20 points at the end that Brandeis walked out of Lafrac with. That says a lot. And it's not that Amherst doesn't have a good team. I just don't think anybody is head and shoulders walk away good this year. Plain and simple. I just don't think it exists. So keep an eye on that. On the women's side, I mean, great stories. FTU Florham still undefeated. Last time they lost was the second round of the Division III Women's Championship in 2013. They are on a 40-game winning streak, if memory serves. I think they were 33-0 last year. 33-0. So they are on a 41-game winning streak, I should say, because they're now 8-0. Thomas More, I keep saying St. Thomas. Thomas More, of course, with Sydney Moss on the squad, is rolling along. They are 1 point ahead of Amherst. We talked about that switch. 1 point ahead of Amherst, who is 6-0 and now has a 102-game home winning streak. Tufts women off to a terrific start. Was the Tufts men off to a very interesting start. I think people expected the Tufts men to be better than their record has indicated so far. WashU, we'll talk to Coach Nancy Fake coming up. Scranton playing extremely good basketball. They're dangerous again. Montclair State, don't know what to think of them. St. Thomas, I'm really not sure what to think of the Tommies on the women's side of things. Wheaton, Illinois is playing well. NYU is back in the fray. Now, they had a little bit of an off year last year, if memory serves. I say that now, and now I want to double check. At 20-6. Of course, 10-15 the year before. They really have come on, I should say, in the years past. I was thinking the men's team would off to a good start and struggled. Williams is back in the fray at 9-0. Of course, Williams played probably 8 of those games in the first 10 days, it would feel like. But they play Wesleyan on the 6th, and they won't play again until the 20th when they go to Puerto Rico to play Eastern University and then Lynchburg on the women's side. So, I mean, just fascinating. The women much more steady, men certainly not as much. Going to take a break. When we come back, we'll get into our interviews. We'll start off with an interview with Lynchburg men's basketball, talk about a team who's off to a good start. Did take a loss last night against Randolph-Macon, but considering the start they had, that's a pretty good loss, and it was only by a couple points. We'll talk to their head coach, Hillary Scott, coming up here on Hoopsville. Also coming up, we will talk to Brandeis's coach, Brian Meehan, I should mention. He'll be joining us here on the show to talk about their big win over Amherst, as we mentioned, and the UAA, and where his team is and why it's so young. Also talk to women's basketball coach at Salisbury, Kelly Lewandowski. She'll join us to talk about maybe the resurgence of the Seagulls. They're back in the top 25 after forever having not been there. We'll also talk to Coach Nancy Fay from WashU and Yeshiva's men's basketball coach as well. That's all coming up here on Hoopsville. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. When we come back, we'll talk to Coach Hillary Scott from Lynchburg. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying our show here on December 11th, 2014. Certainly lots to talk about. We've been talking about the surprises going on in Division III basketball, and certainly there is plenty to chat about. If you have questions for us or you got thoughts for our guests or whatever the case may be, you can tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us on email, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, to send your email thoughts that way, or Facebook us, facebook.com/Hoopsville. That's how you can interact with us. We certainly hope you'll take the time, both on the air and off the air, of course, as well. We certainly will look forward to hearing from you. One of the teams that certainly had our attention most of the season, the way they started, it was the Lynchburg Hornets, who are off to a 6-1 start. You might remember last year certainly made some waves. Off to a good start themselves then, 17-9, finished 10-6 in the ODAC this year. Already 6-1, 1-1. They lost their first game just the other night, about 5 days ago, against Randolph-Macon, and have a big game against Marymount coming up. So we figured, well, we should probably talk to their head coach. And so agreeing to join us on Skype, not even a Hoopsville hotline like we normally has, is their basketball coach, Hillary Scott. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm hoping. Oh, try it one more time, Coach, so I can see if we can hear you.
I said thank you and hope you're doing well. Can you hear me?
I do. Good. I just had the wrong button pushed. I hope the viewers could hear as well. Thanks so much for joining me. I certainly appreciate it. Again, you guys are off to a pretty good start. I mean, the loss to Randolph-Macon was by a scant point, so you really can't knock anything about that. 53-52, of course, at their place in Ashland. I was going to say a tough place to play, but Frostburg beat them there, so we'll try not to hold that against you. How has the season started from your point of view?
Well, so far so good. I mean, you always like to be 7-0 at this point, but 6-1 is a really good start. We feel like we've played some really tough teams opening up the season, and we've been playing hard. We've been playing with a lot of spirit and energy. I really enjoy that about this team. Guys are listening and playing for one another, and the question is, can we sustain it? We talk about consistency throughout the season, so hopefully we can use that as a term for us moving forward.
Not to dwell on the past too much, but obviously the end of last season was a little bit tough for you guys after a great start, losing 3 of the last 6, including 3 in a row to Guilford, Bridgewater, and then Eastern Mennonite in the conference tournament. I know that kind of left a bad taste in your mouths a little bit. Is that maybe what we're seeing at the beginning of the season, a little bit of an edge to the team, as it were?
Well, I hope so. Whatever motivation we can use, we'll definitely take advantage of it. And I think our guys, we're preseason pick number 7 as well in our league, and I don't know if that sat well with our guys as well. But to be honest with you as a coach, you want to finish well, and having a good start beats the alternative for sure. But the thing is how we finish and where you're ranked and all of those things is more important towards the end of the season than it is at the beginning. And we got a lot of things we need to work on and for us to get better, which is positive. Us winning some games, with still having some things we really need to work on and get better at. That part of it is real positive. But as a coach, we want to end well. And we haven't done that the last couple years, and I know as a staff we're working extremely hard to try to get these guys better every single day.
You're in your 6th season as a coach, and clearly it's already making an impact, as we mentioned, since you've come on board. 12-15, 11-15, then you turn the corner, 15-11, 19-8, 17-9. Now you're off to another great start in a tough conference, to say the least. You're not shying away either in your conference schedule. I mean, you went out there to play, granted, a Mary Washington team that's depleted from last year, but still tough, well coached. You took on Christopher Newport, got a huge win against them. You took on Ferrum. We're going to skip over the game against my alma mater. Don't want to bring that up. But obviously that was a tough game at halftime that you were able to pull away at the end. I'm sorry I couldn't be there for it. But you haven't shied away on this non-conference schedule, and you've still got Marymount ahead of you coming up in 5 days. You've got Richard Stockton and potentially Randolph-Macon or Immaculata at Franklin and Marshall coming up at the beginning of the season. You guys are going for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we got to do, and maybe that's part of the reason why we haven't finished as well as we need to. We need to. I felt like we needed to boost up our out-of-conference schedule, and hopefully this doesn't come back and bite me as we look back at the end of the season. But I feel like these games can only help us in this tough league that we play in, and when you got the likes of the other 11 teams that we play in the ODAC, and every single game is a grind. I felt like we needed to try to play some good teams, really good teams, tournament teams, and hopefully get our mindset where maybe we can possibly be one of those guys at the end of the season. And like I said, I hope this doesn't bite me at the end, but I think at the end of the day, it can only help us to get us ready for this tough, grinded out league that we play in.
When you look at the schedule, your roster, I should say, there are just 2 seniors on this squad, and they're not even the guys that are your keys, at least on the stat sheet. Alex Graves, a junior, is your leading scorer at 16.5 points a game. Zach Burkett, a sophomore, 13.5 points a game. Austin Arnold, a junior, 13 points a game. Daniel Rowe, a junior, 8.5 points a game. Lyndon White, a sophomore, 6.5 points a game. Then I get to a senior, A.J. Hamilton, 6.5 points a game. And certainly there's other contributions in other departments. Graves, though, is your leading rebounder. Burnett is your second rebounder. Third rebounder is another junior in Arnold. This bodes well, certainly for the future. It bodes well for this year, too, if you've got this much young talent already stepping up to the plate at this point in the season.
I think it's a credit to those guys, too. They've really worked extremely hard during the offseason. I mean, even starting right after we lost the ODAC tournament, it didn't sit well with them the way we ended the season. And they really have put in the work, on the court, in the weight room, conditioning, and it really, kind of snowballed in the preseason as well. And this success has been a credit to their hard work. And they're really, really playing for one another and serving one another. And that's been, a term we've been using all year. And hopefully we can continue that. But I think, like I said, it's just been a credit to them and the hard work they put in to really improve their games in all aspects. And I think another big key is that they're listening. We sit down at the end of every season and we have one-on-one conversations with each guy and just to talk about some of the things that need to improve on. And they really have gone down the list, to try to improve those aspects of their game. We got to continue to play unselfishly as we move forward. We all have to step up our games with these games that we have coming up. We got a tough team in Marymount coming in next week who's 7-0 and playing really well and had some good wins already this year, who handed it up to us pretty well last year at their place. So we've got our work cut out for us moving forward. But this is why we play. This is why you play Division III, and this is why you play in the ODAC. And if you can't enjoy this process and what we're doing here at Lynchburg, then you really shouldn't be playing basketball.
Obviously, there's a buzz, no pun intended, with the Hornets on campus with the women's soccer team claiming a national championship in dramatic fashion, coming from behind the semifinals and then winning in a shootout to win the national championship behind incredible defense. But and of course the men's lacrosse team has always been a pretty solid unit. How much do the successes of those kinds of programs and others, you hear about it, but how much does it really have that kind of residual effect, as it were, into other programs?
Well, I think it fuels us, and not only those 2 programs. You got baseball's won the ODAC championship within the last 3 years. Softball has done the same. Volleyball this in the fall lost in the ODAC championship. You got track and field, who has 1 million championships on banners in our gym. Really, you go down the line, all of our programs have been successful. Field hockey's won 13 or 14 in a row. I stopped counting. So all of our programs are really, really successful, and I think that fuels us. I think our team, our women's team, has done a good job. Coach Posick Smith has really turned the corner with her bunch. They've been, preseason picked to win their league as well. So I think that fuels all of us, and we want to be talked about. We want to hang some banners in our gym. We talk about it constantly, and so we don't want to be the program and the squad that holds everybody back, and we want to be talked about just like those guys. But I think the unique thing about Lynchburg College is we are a really close-knit bunch in terms of our staff, the athletic department, our athletic director, and so we get motivation out of seeing success of the older programs, and they truly want to see success from everyone else as well. Coach Olson, Dr. Olson, ended up texting us during his semifinal game. I think that was the weekend we beat Christopher Newport here. We actually played at the same time, I think. And heck, I got a text from him, congratulations, and he's making it to the Final Four. But that sums up our program and our athletic department. And we truly get some joy out of everyone's success.
When you look at this, the conference, success is in the conference, but it's also come a long way, at least on the men's basketball side, from eclipsing to the very top. Virginia, it's been a while. In my mind, it has been a while, but in reality, it's been a while since since Virginia Wesleyan won the national championship. And you've got good teams like Randolph-Macon, Virginia Wesleyan, Guilford has been in the mix. You certainly have had others like yourselves who've made their presence known. What is there chat amongst coaches in the conference that, you know what, we got to kind of get back to things here. We got to go back to Salem and win another national championship. Is there that conversation going on?
Well, I mean, I think with the league that we have, that is a conversation, amongst everyone. I mean, I think teams genuinely feel like they have a chance of winning the whole thing because of the league we actually play in. And what not many leagues out there can say you have national champions on the basketball side. Not many leagues can say that you have several Final Four teams. I mean, a few years ago we had 4 teams make that. Well, we've had 4 teams make the tournament twice since I've been here. That's unheard of. And I think that the first time that happened since I've been here, I think we had 2 teams make the Final Four, and probably would have been 3 if Guilford and Eastern Mennonite didn't have to play each other in the Elite 8. So I mean, that's a constant conversation. Now for us, we talk about having that opportunity of cutting down nets and winning an ODAC championship and all those things. We like to take some baby steps first before we start, talking bigger goals. But, I think if you can get through our league with some success, I think we all feel like you got a shot of winning the whole thing amongst our out-of-conference foes. We really believe that. And we have evidence of it over the last, 6, 7, 8 years. And even when I was playing, we felt like, hey, if we could just get out of our league, we feel like we got a chance of being successful.
How does this conference going to shape up? How Randolph-Macon was a selection to finish at the top of the conference this year. Hampden-Sydney's off to a good start this year at 5-0, 2-0. Bridgewater may not be overall record, but they're 2-0 in conference. Lynchburg, yourself, 6-1. Virginia Wesleyan is 6-1. Eastern Mennonite, Randolph, and Roanoke are 4-2. I think Roanoke's one of your sleepers. Guilford's 5-2. You only have 3 teams below 500 right now to start the season. How does this conference shape up by the end of the season?
Well, I mean, if it's like any other year, I mean, that's going to be the norm. I think last year we had 9 or 10 teams with winning records or something like that.
Yeah.
Don't quote that off the top of my head, but unfortunately, it's probably going to be like that again this year. And, I think sums us up. If you're not ready to play in our league, you're going to get beat. I mean, as simple as that. And then if you're playing your best, you still might get beat. So it's a grind it out. I know I hate to keep using that same phrase, but I mean, I really truly feel like, you have to take a deep breath after every game. We won a game against Randolph last Wednesday at home, and it was a grind it out, backyard brawl, if you want to call it. And you literally want to take a deep breath afterwards, and and hopefully, get your mind right for the next one, coming up. And in 2 days we had Randolph-Macon, and that. That's the way it is. And really every single game is like that. And you look at your schedule, you could go 0-16 in the league, easy. And, if you're not ready to play. So, unfortunately, Dave, I think it's going to be the same this year. And I think that's what makes our league so good is the parity. And you really, on the road is tough. Winning at home is tough. So, at the end of the day, winning a league game is tough.
Before I let you go, I got to get your point of view on the coaches in this conference. There is a wide berth of coaches. You've got the Nate Davises, the Tom Palombos, the Dave Macedos, Clay Nunley, yourself, your former coach in Paige Moyer, Nobody is similar. Nobody's even close. Nobody has the same style. Everybody has a different defense. Everybody has a different offense. You can't go through this conference and go, oh yeah, well his game plan is like Virginia Wesleyan's, and his game plan is like Moyer. That's got to be the most difficult part, the wide variety of coaching and coaching styles in this conference.
And they're all good.
Yeah, that too.
That's the other thing, Dave. They're all really good, and you know, again, that's what makes our league, I think, so unique. I mean, we have, you know, 11 really good coaches, and you know, that come up with unique game plans every game, and you know, they do their best to try to take away what you do best, and you know, it makes it difficult. And over the years, we don't change as much, so that makes it even worse. You know, Davis, in the sense that, you know, we're kind of running some of the same things year after year, and we know what each other is going to do, which makes it even tougher, you know, to try to get a win. It really does, on the offensive end and on the defensive end. And I think our game against Randolph-Macon last Saturday, I think we went the last 7 minutes, and I think Macon scored 3 points and we scored like 4. And
there's exciting basketball.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it tough, man. It's just you know, every possession is a grind, and you know, trying your best to outsmart the other coach is hard. It really is. And you know, I wish 11 guys would try to find another job somewhere else, you know, and maybe find a job, you know, somewhere else where we don't have to see them on a day-to-day basis. But it does. I mean, as a coach, it is fun. It is fun, believe it or not, to you know, try to, you know, go X's and O's and play that chess game with all the other coaches in the league, and you know, it makes it tough. That's why I'm losing my hair now, Dave, with all of these game plans and scouts we got to come with on a day-to-day basis.
I think that's when you have to give it to your assistant coaches. Just let them deal with it.
Well, they're losing their hair too, so we're all in the same boat.
That's why I've got my hair. I'm not into coaching.
Right, smart man.
Yeah, well,
smart man.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much. Love talking about your team, and certainly the ODAC. Keep an eye on you guys. Sorry I missed you when you're up in our neck of the woods. Maybe if I've got time, I'll drop by Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and catch you guys. But otherwise, as always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who are tuning in?
Yeah, just I appreciate you having me on, and you know, any chance we got a chance to talk about Lynchburg basketball, the ODAC, and all of the other schools and teams in our league is great, man. I really appreciate all the work you're doing, and you know, I wish you had all this stuff around when I was playing, and maybe we would know a little bit more about Division III 20 years ago. But you know, I really appreciate all the things that you're doing, and I know our fans enjoy it as well.
Well, thank you, Coach. I appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the way. Have a good holiday as well.
You too. Thank you.
Yep, take care. Hillary Scott joining us from Lynchburg. Appreciate him taking the time to join us. Certainly going to look forward to watching them play in the Old Dominion Athletic Conference this season. It is going to be a wide-open conference. It certainly looks like. I mean, you didn't even mention Hampden, Sydney, and DVic and the rest of that gang. So looking forward to that. Coach, thank you so much. Take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you soon. That's going to do it for this. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to jump off and talk to Brandeis, who won the big game against Amherst by 20 points. We'll also talk to women's basketball coach Kelly Lewandowski at Salisbury. We'll talk to Nancy Fay at WashU. We'll also talk to Yeshiva. That's all coming up right here on Hoopsville. If you got any questions for us, you can tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or you can Facebook us, facebook.com/Hoopsville. When we come back, we'll jump up to the East Coast and Brandeis, talk to Coach Brian Meehan, get a little pearls of knowledge, as it were, from the man on their win over Amherst. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
And the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor's Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your evening here on December the 11th. Certainly appreciate all the viewership, as it were. If you have questions for us, you can always ask them on social media, Twitter, you name it. Twitter is at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. It has been the year of the upsets and the year of the questions. We have talked about that certainly a lot here on this show, and just when you think things might settle down, you get another wrinkle. And that happened earlier this week when Brandeis went and visited Amherst, the number 2 team in the country. And while we certainly know Brandeis makes attention and gets plenty of headlines, I don't think anybody expected them to walk into the Lord Jeff Slafrack Gymnasium and come out with a 78-58 win. So that got our attention, certainly, and that means we go to one of our favorite coaches, and that's Brandeis men's basketball coach Brian Meehan, who joins us via Skype. Coach, A, thanks for joining us on the Skype, and B, congratulations on the big win.
Thanks, Dave. It's always good to be with you.
Certainly appreciate you taking the time. Listen, let's not sugarcoat this. You guys were off to a rough start, having lost 4 in a row and 5 out of 6 to start the season. Before you get 2 big wins, really. A tough squad I think a lot of people are trying to figure out. I think they had higher expectations of. You get a 2-point win over them at Babson. And then you come across 2 days later with the Lord Jeffs and get a solid 78-58 win over them. I think maybe the win, probably not that surprising. I mean, Amherst has taken some hits in the Northeast before, but 20 points at their place, I think that caught the attention.
It caught my attention, Dave, because like you said, we started the season pretty slowly for a variety of reasons. I mean, 4 very winnable games all came down to the last minute. We look at it like it was decided at the foul line in all those games. We just weren't shooting well, and we're really young, so there's certain things you can control and certain things you can't. Free throws were one of the things we thought we could control. So that kind of got us off to a bad start, win-loss wise. But in the big picture, we saw our young team really improving and coming together, and we really like our guys a lot. We've got a great attitude. So, we weren't fooled by that. I think some other people may have been looking like, maybe we're out of the picture or it's going to be one of those years. But and the other thing is, we've had a lot of injuries. Early in the year, it's hard to gauge teams. So we had a bunch of guys who never even got into preseason. And now they're getting healthy and they're starting to practice and we're coming together. So, but, I'd be a liar if I said I saw that coming on Tuesday at Amherst, because it wasn't just a win. It was the way we played. We really played a really excellent basketball game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key. Amherst, as you pointed out to me before we went on the air, certainly has a lot of talent, and Dave Hickson always has. Certainly a team that's going to compete and always be in the conversation for a trip to Salem. And they've got a young team that certainly he reloads better than anybody. It's more like retooling or just kind of rebuilding, not from the ground up, but just filling in holes. What was the strategy going in? Did you guys find something on tape that you went, we can take advantage of this? Or was it one of those deals where it just started going your way early in the game and you were able to ride it all the way to the end?
No, relatively speaking, we've had some success against Amherst over the last 10 years. It's kind of varying styles of play. They they like to play, kind of get back in by the 3-point line and play some really solid man-to-man, and they use their length and their size advantage really well, and they try to shorten the court. And we like to kind of extend and ball pressure and get after people a little bit. So it's kind of contrasting styles. I just think we kind of hung in there early, and then it came time to sub, and we had some guys come in and really shoot the ball well off the bench. And all of a sudden it became a close game. And surprisingly, because we've been in so many close games, I think our guys are starting to settle in, and they're feeling more and more comfortable with that. It just got to the point where it was a game of runs, and it never really got away from either of us. We made a little run at the end of the first half to go up 6 or 7. They made a run to get it even again in the second half, and then all of a sudden we just, we seemed to really kind of dig in, and we kind of took over the will of the game and turned it into our kind of a game, and spread them out a little bit and started getting to the basket. And for the first time all year, really showed some patience on offense, not panicking. We took a lot of really good shots. And then we had a couple of bounces go our way. You have to have a few of those. We had a few go against us early in the year, so it kind of evens it all up. But certainly we played an exceptionally good game, and much more than I had expected this soon.
When you mentioned close games, one of your games losses this year to Salem State was by 8, but every other loss is within 2 or 4 points. Your win over Framingham State was a 12-point victory. Of course, your win over Tufts was 2 points. Your win over Amherst now 20. So you're right. Certainly a lot of games that are close for most of that. The big key here is you won at their place. I know you love playing at home, but LaFrac has certainly been Amherst's favorite tool, as it were, in the coaching realms. Certainly the women have taken advantage of that with 102 straight wins, but the men have been tough to beat there as well. Is it maybe because you played them so often that there's a familiarity there that kind of removes the aura of LaFrac?
I would say yes, except nobody on our team had played there before. We had 2 guys who had played there before, because everybody else is freshmen and sophomores, so all of our sophomores played only at home last year. So, I think really it just has to do. We've only played 2 home games. Mm-hmm. We've been on the road. We have a terrible non-league schedule this year in regards to home away, and it's just kind of the way it fell. So we had to embrace it, and there wasn't a particularly large crowd there, so that was a non-factor. The fact that we had been on the road so much, that was a non-factor. It kind of evened it up. But, we did talk. We talked about having gone out there in the past and won some games, and, as recently as 2009, 2008, 8-9 season.
Sure.
And so, 2 of the guys on my staff, Joe Coppins and Terrell Hollins, both former All-Americans, D3 hoop guys, they had success there. So, having those guys back as assistant coaches and being able to talk to the players and kind of relate their own experiences certainly helps us. So, but ultimately you still got to go out there and face them. And all good teams are going to be good teams at home. So we knew going in it was going to be a really, really good challenge.
Let's shift gears and talk about the team. I'm blown away when I look at the stat sheet. You've got 8 guys. By the way, nobody in double figures, but you've got 8 guys contributing 6 or more points a game. You're 2 at 9 points a game plus, 8 points a game plus for 2 more, 7 games a point plus for 2 more, 6 for 2 more. I mean, it's rather nicely evened out. And you're led by Robinson Vilmont at 9.6 and Jordan Cooper at 9.2, a sophomore and a freshman. You then have another freshman in Carlin Heyman, another sophomore in John Powell, another freshman in Samuel Dowden, another sophomore in Tim Reel. It takes me until I get to Colby Smith at averaging 6.4 points a game before I get to, let's call it, an upperclassman in a junior. You talk about the youth on Amherst's team. You've got a ton of youth on your team, and the roster is even deeper in that youth.
We do. We're very young. Robinson, he didn't come back. His first game was against Framingham. And that was a little bit of our problem early in the season, and because he played a lot of minutes as a freshman last year. Started a lot of games for us. So he got a deep thigh contusion and was held out until Framingham. So, he's really just starting. I mean, not just playing games, but even the practice time that he's missed. Colby Smith, our true upperclassman as a junior, who's been a 2-year starter. We really thought he'd kind of hold us together at the beginning. He had mono, so he didn't get cleared to come back and practice until the day before opening night. So Jordan Cooper missed all of preseason. It's been a nightmare. Not only are we young, but then we had so many of these young guys missing preseason that the continuity thing was a real issue for us. But, we feel like we've got a lot of talented players, and now it's just a matter of spending some time together practice. And so, a lot of people are like, oh, geez, what a bad time for the break to come, with all the momentum you had going. But, it's also nice to be able to step back, take a deep breath, get all these guys on the practice court, and really start working them all in together and getting to know each other a little bit better. So, we're young. We're happy to be young. We're happy with the guys that we have, and we're kind of looking forward to enjoying the next few years.
Something completely random. I'm just kind of curious. Don't usually talk recruiting on the show, but I look at the roster, and it is absolutely full of prep school students. And as a graduate of a prep school in New England, I certainly know there's a lot to choose from. And knowing the UAA, knowing Brandeis, this seems like it's a good avenue for you guys to tap into what is a lot of talent. But I mean, I'm looking at Deerfield and Phillips Andover, St. Andrew's School in Rhode Island, which I certainly know well, Suffield Academy. Is that kind of where you guys do get a lot of traction? And this is going to sound a little strange, but have you maybe also missed out on some of the talent that I know is coming through those schools? Granted, some of that talent is also looking at D1, I realize as well.
Well, for us, it really has a lot more to do with academics than anything else. Kids coming out of those schools are really extremely well prepared academically to deal with the rigors of a Brandeis education. So that really, that kind of points us in their direction. Also, Brandeis is a school that really wants to appeal across the country, and we want to be able to recruit kids from all over. One of the ways we can do that and feel comfortable about getting to know the kids we're recruiting is to kind of get them in our own backyard, even though they may be from other parts, from the West Coast or from Florida, Texas, all those types of areas. So that helps us a little bit. So it's kind of a win-win for us. Our admissions people appreciate it, and and it's good for our school demographics.
Let's talk about the conference real quick. Chicago picked to be on top. They're sitting at 5-3 after certainly a challenging start to the season in their non-conference. Emory's off to 7-1. Case Western Reserve off to 6-1. Carnegie Mellon 7-0. Wash U 9-0 with a big game coming up this weekend against Illinois Wesleyan. How's this conference going to shape up, do you think? Is this going to be a dogfight to the end? Is someone capable of running away maybe with the conference? Are you guys going to be battling out maybe for some extra bids again?
Heading into Christmas with the win over Amherst, I was feeling pretty good until you just started pointing out who I have ahead of me. So I really appreciate that, Dave. I think it's going to be a battle to the end. I don't think we're the only young program in the UAA right now. I think Wash U lost quite a few guys last year, some really high-level guys. But as always, Mark's got some kids waiting there for their turn. Chicago's certainly been building over the past few years, and Mike's done a great job of putting together a really nice team. Emory, Jason's done a great job down at Emory. I mean, he's taken them from the bottom of the league, and they're now perennially at the top. Case Western, same thing. I mean, it's a dogfight every year. I mean, last year it was like everybody was fighting to be in the middle there, and Wash U was clearly the best team in the league and really earned it going through. But I'm still looking at NYU saying that's pretty much the same team they had last year intact. and they've struggled a little bit, but I'm not counting them out either. So I think it's going to go top to bottom. I think, in our league over the past, young teams struggle because you go on the road, you have to deal with some adversity, and, you're playing in different regions of the country. Maybe the games are called a little differently, and so it makes it a little bit harder for young teams to maintain composure. So I always go towards the teams that have the juniors and the seniors, and I think that it'll play out that way. I don't think that means that teams aren't going to be able to knock each other off, but I think when the dust settles, you're going to have a really strong upper-class-laden team who's probably going to come out on top.
You point out that you guys hit your break here. Amherst 12 was your last game of this semester, per se, 2014. You're off until January 2nd when you'll take on Roger Williams, then January 3rd against Curry. Those games on the road as well. There's that scheduling you were talking about. Bates then on the road as well on January 6th before you finally get your home game going with a conference game against NYU. How do you keep the team sharp here in the 3 some odd weeks that they're going to have off before they get really right back into the thick of things on the road with 3 at least decent battles in a 5-day stretch?
Yeah, there's no real easy way to do it. It's everybody deals with the same problem. We're already into exams as of today, so we can't do anything during exams. Our guys will come in. We have, like I said, I really like my group. Part of the reason I really like them is because they love playing. So they're in here anyways on their own, getting shots up and lifting and doing all the things that coaches want guys to do, but it doesn't always happen. So I feel a little bit better this year knowing that we have a group that really likes coming into the gym. And then there's also the fact that we want them to go home too. It's their only chance to get a break. So when their exams end, we don't hold them back. As soon as each kid has their last exam, they'll get out of here. So, we're done. We'll come back on the 27th of December, and then we really have to get to work. So, we've told the kids what we expect of them while they're away, and as long as they can stay in shape and keep their wind going, get some shots up, we can put it back together pretty quickly. I mean, that's just the way it is in D3. You have that big awkward break. It's almost like starting over again. Yeah. But again, like I said, sometimes it's a good break. Sometimes it gives them a chance to kind of slow down and really think about what we're trying to do and where they're struggling. And sometimes with that they kind of catch their breath and come back, and things seem a lot easier and more understandable. So that's what I'm hoping for. So let's hope that's the way it plays out.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on the show. And to paraphrase Adam, thanks for the pearls of wisdom. But a little bit more pearl of wisdom, I wouldn't mind if you want to send me the scouting report you had on Amherst to win, because my alma mater takes them on January 3rd down here in Baltimore, and I wouldn't mind seeing that victory. I'm a little shameless, I'll admit. But
I don't know. It might mean more to me if we're the only team that beats them.
That's true. Yeah, you probably don't want that glory, don't you? Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Hey, thanks so much. I really do appreciate you coming on. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who are tuning in?
Like I always say, David, I just appreciate all you do for D3 and basketball and the great coverage, and it's really helped the sport and at our level for sure. And I hope a lot of people take the time to thank you, because I know I do.
Yes, you do, and I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Happy holidays. Good luck on the new year with that run, and good luck in the UAA conference as well, and congrats on the win against Amherst.
Thanks, David.
Well, thanks to Coach Meehan for joining us. We certainly appreciate it. When we come back, we'll shift gears, talk women's basketball with another team on the East Coast that is making headlines. It's the Salisbury Women. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
And welcome back to Hoopsville on this Thursday evening, December 11th. Thank you for joining us. Certainly appreciate you taking the time. If you want to interact with us, don't forget on Twitter at D3Hoopsville. Use the hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Talking to a lot of teams, getting attention this time of year, maybe when we're not used to hearing from them, or it's been a long time, and certainly that is true for the Salisbury women, ranked number 23 in the D3Hoops.com most recent poll. And joining us on the Hoopsville hotline for the Mid-Atlantic region is Kelly Lewandowski, the head coach for Salisbury. Coach, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Well, you're in your fourth season and already certainly a success. Your first season, 15-12, then, or I should say 15-11, then 15-12, 18-9 last year. Finally made a splash in the CAC. I think everybody was looking forward to, and now you're off to a 7-0 start, 2-0 in the CAC. I'm sure there's got to be a buzz on campus right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely very exciting. We have a huge senior class with 6 seniors, so I think that causes a buzz right there. Athletics is highly supported here at Salisbury. As I don't know if you know, but many of the other sports are very successful, so it's exciting to finally get that excitement around basketball.
Oh, certainly football and lacrosse and certainly others, field hockeys and the like. Mm-hmm. Salisbury has a great winning tradition, and the basketball programs were certainly a part of that. A little bit removed, both programs, from the heyday, as it were, but we've seen signs that they're kind of coming back into the fold, as it were. This 7-0 start certainly is a huge sign of that. And a big win over Catholic, though certainly not as strong as they have in the past. A win over Virginia Wesleyan, a win over Stevenson. You've got some solid games so far under your belt as we look towards the close of the 2014 part of the schedule.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we always like to schedule that way. We have, a home-away contest set up with all 3 of those schools every year because our conference is so competitive. We think that it's really important that our preseason schedule is the same. So when we get into the CAC bulk schedule, that we're prepared and we're ready to go.
And this is a CAC, of course, over the years has gotten pretty competitive. Always has been. York down this year due to a loss of a lot of talent, but still in play. Christopher Newport, of course, is always a team to be fearful of. Marymount has resurged. Mary Washington has always gotten a lot of headlines over the years. They're all still in the mix as well. This is a tough conference, certainly in the years past, and as you've now emerged at the top of the conference as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's really exciting to play in this conference and to go against some of the regional top teams and sometimes, nationally top teams. So it's really exciting. We talk about with our team all the time that every game is going to be a game. There's not going to be many blowouts. So it's good to get prepared every single day and every single game to be ready to have a fight.
When you look at this team, you mentioned the 6 seniors, certainly a lot of not pressure per se, but expectations certainly on their shoulders after a few successful years so far, and now off to this start. What's the message in the locker room? How do you keep this team kind of focused on the task at hand and not focus on the number 23 or the number 21 or the 7-0 start?
Our seniors, we talked a lot with them. They're really grounded. You know what I mean? I think that they've been a big part in how our program has progressed over the last couple of years, and they have some really high goals for the season, and they're focused. They're not getting caught up in the rankings, although they think it's exciting. They're trying to act like we deserve to be here, and that's the attitude that we're going in with every single day at practice, that we got to continue to prove ourselves. They know how tough our conference is, and they know, the CNUs and the Yorks and the Mary Washingtons and Mary Mounts are going to come ready to play. So they know that we have to work every day to get better. And I think having a taste of it last year and coming up a little short has left them very hungry. So they are very determined, and they are really holding, the rest of the team accountable and really expecting the best every day. Not, even in certain games, maybe we didn't play our best, but we got to win. The whole mentality of the team was, that's not good enough. We need to do our best every day and not just get the win.
Of course, you're led by two juggernauts at this point. Anna Hackett, probably no surprise to anybody, the post player, averaging 20 points a game. Of course, her presence is certainly known. I should say point guard, pretty known at 5'4". She's maybe hard to miss on the floor, but when she's putting up 20 points a game, she's going to attract a lot of attention. That's an interesting position for a guard to be putting up that many points, especially running the offense.
Yeah, Anna was a freshman my first year here. So she's been with me from the very beginning, and she was thrown into it right away, playing 40 minutes as a freshman. So it's been really exciting to see how she's developed over the last 4 years, not only, as a basketball player, but as a leader on this team. It is hard to believe that she's only like 5'4", because she plays a lot bigger, and I don't think you would notice that she's that small when she's out on the floor, but she's extremely talented, especially on the offensive end. I mean, she has range, she has great handle, she has, a great basketball knowledge. So, I think she's extremely talented, and, she maybe hasn't gotten the attention that she deserved, regionally, just because our team hasn't been as successful, but she's the real deal.
Of course, Sarah Seep, I hope I say her last name. Sipe, thank you, is also contributing in the guard position, 15.5 points a game. Certainly doesn't take away from anybody else. You have a whole cacophony of players behind them who are at least contributing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points a game. But Sarah and Anna certainly are the two catalysts at the guard position. But that's kind of interesting because you're not getting a huge amount of contributions on the inside, at least in points.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're a great duo, and they really feed off each other, and they really help each other out. And they're extremely different. Anna's very more composed and reserved, and Sarah definitely plays on the edge and takes more risks. And I think they help each other out that way. And they're a hard duo to guard for other people. And and I think our bench has gotten deeper, so it's helped to open them up even more because people do have to worry about some of the other players on our team.
Yeah, Julia McLaughlin, your junior forward, Katie Albaroz, your junior forward, Melanie Mosniak, your senior forward. Certainly, those are your three forwards who are contributing and well. I mean, 5, 6, 7, 8 points, as we mentioned, a game for those two. Of course, we should mention Anna and Sarah also handing out, about 3 assists a game on average for those two. When you look at your dynamic, does this mean you guys are kind of an up-tempo type of team for those who may not have seen you who play it through the guard position? Are you willing to sit up on the half court and just try and ball movement it around to get those two open?
We are fast, I think. We're fairly athletic, so we like to push the ball. We like to run, and same with our posts. They're not huge posts. We're not huge by any means, so they like to get up and run, and they're running the floor too. So yeah, they get a lot off of that. But we do have some sets. We slow it down when we don't have these fast break options, and it's hard to guard those two both in the half court sets. Anna has the ability to beat people off the dribble. So if you worry about her, she's then hitting the next open person.
Your coaching pedigree certainly has a lot of good stops on the way, or just quick stops at least. Gettysburg for 3 years an assistant. Of course, you were from Scranton, University of. Certainly a lot of pedigree there as well. What are you able to take from your experience with Coach Strong at Scranton, your experience at Gettysburg that you're bringing to the table here at Salisbury that seems to be certainly helping to turn the table, as it were?
Oh my! I've learned so much from both of them. Playing for Coach Strong and working with him for a year. He was the best. He's the all-time leading scorer in Division, or leading winner in Division III right now. So, the biggest thing Coach taught me, and it wasn't even X's and O's. I mean, he used to always say, "You need great talent."
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier when you got some good players.
Sure.
So I'm lucky that way. But he taught me more. I mean, it's the relationships, and it's caring for your players, and and developing that culture. And that's something that I think we've really tried to do here at Salisbury. And it took some time, but I think like those girls that are seniors now, really knowing what we expect has really set the tone. And then being at Gettysburg and being in a different department, I mean, the athletic department there is run greatly, and I've learned a lot from Coach K. He's been in it for a long time too, and they're undefeated right now. I've just been really lucky to just go into practice every day and get new drills and plays and stuff like that from two of the best.
This is a program that, even late, most of the 90s into the early 2000s was a juggernaut in the Mid-Atlantic region. Mm-hmm. And, of course, in a tough CAC. At the time, Catholic was there. Goucher happened to be really good back then and hasn't been since. But you had Marymount, obviously was at the top of the pack.
Yeah.
Salisbury fell back to a point where, I don't want to say they got forgotten, but got left behind by everybody else. Mm-hmm. Has it been difficult to rebuild, especially in the recruiting, going, hey, you got to come to the Eastern Shore? This is where we want to kind of rebuild its heyday.
Yeah, I think it was challenging in the beginning, but now, once you get the word out and you bring people to campus, we're really lucky. I mean, it's a great place. And I always joke, I don't know why I didn't look south at all, because it is a great place to live, and not far from the beach, and
mm-hmm.
and like I said, the athletic department here, if you want to play a sport, I mean, it's one of the top in Division III. So in any coach taking over a new program, there's always going to be those growing pains, but I'm excited about what we've done and the future of our program here.
Coach Strong is happy you didn't look any further south, just for the record.
I don't know. Some days he might have been, some
true.
days not.
Yeah, true. Fair point. Again, back to the CAC in the Mid-Atlantic region. Again, it's gonna, it's a dogfight of the conference. Again, you've got Marymount, who's already off to a 6-1, 3-0 start. Christopher Newport's off to a good start. You've got them coming up on the schedule. Mary Washington looks like they're at least off to a decent start. And of course, you can't count out York, who may not be off to a good start, but once she gets her team rolling along, they can be just as dangerous. You've got Christopher Newport coming up on the 17th. You then you take your holiday off, and then you play Illinois Wesleyan on the 28th in New Jersey.
Yeah.
You talk about not shying away from your schedule. You got some good games coming up just in this month.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough 3-game stretch coming up. Obviously right now we're just focused on Christopher Newport, playing them on Wednesday. I mean, Bill does such a great job down there. Mm-hmm. They're a real tough team. They're the only team that in the conference last year we weren't able to beat. So, we're excited, and we get to play them at home, so it's going to be a good test to see where we really are at. And then, we like to play a really tough Christmas tournament to get us prepared for when we come back. So going up to Montclair's tournament and playing against Illinois Wesleyan, we had opportunity to play them last year. We're excited.
And in this conference, how do you see it shaping up? Is this going to be a dogfight to the end?
I think so. Yeah, I think it always is. I think a team too that is doing well in our conference right now is going to be Wesley.
Yeah.
Wesley's really surprising people. They're a super athletic team. They beat York and they're coming along. They were young last year, and like you said, I'm sure Betsy's going to get her team together. She does a great job. So it is a dogfight all the way to the end. Even last year with 2 teams being ranked, mm-hmm. I think there was a number of teams that could have won it at the end, and that's what I think that makes our conference so special, is how competitive it is.
And I don't know how much you're looking at it already, but kind of the newfangled Mid-Atlantic, the CAC now all together in one side of the region, the Landmark all together in one side of the region, instead of being split with the Atlantic. Have you thought about the ramifications of that and how much that may make it even more difficult come the end of the season should you not win an AQ in this conference?
Yeah, I have. I think, we had some good teams in our conference last year when we were at the Atlantic, too. Mm-hmm. We had the Montclairs and the Catholics and everything. So, but now, we're throwing with FDU and Scranton and those teams. So I think no matter where we are, it's going to be a fight. And, I think we just got to prove ourselves, and if we deserve to be there, we'll be there.
Coach, to make you feel better, FDU went over to the Atlantic, so you only have to worry about
you.
Scranton. Scranton, Catholic, Moravian, those are the ones you got to worry
thank
about.
You then.
Yeah, there. Just try to help. Of course, there's Christopher Newport.
Yeah,
and the rest.
Everybody else in our conference.
Exactly. Now you got to deal with the entire conference.
Good.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on the show. Certainly great to see the Seagulls back up and running in basketball. I certainly remember back in the day when you feared Seagulls. See the Seagulls coming into your campus. But congratulations. Microphone fail. Congratulations on the start to the season, and we'll look forward to seeing how you guys do the rest of the way. As always, though, we leave the final word to the coach. Any final words you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
I just want to say, I guess, I'm really proud of my team right now. They've been working really hard, and, the success they're getting right now, they've definitely earned it. So, we're just happy, and we hope to keep it going, and we thank everyone that's been supporting us along the way.
Very good. Kelly Lewandowski joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Coach, appreciate you taking the time to join us. Coming up, we're going to go shift gears from the East Coast to the Midwest. We're going to talk to WashU women's basketball coach Nancy Fay. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Back with more Hoopsville right after this.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things, not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. You can join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Of course, on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville, all at the bottom of the screen. Keeping up our topic of women's basketball, jumping from number 23 in the D3Hoops.com top 25 to number 5, and probably one of the more consistent programs in all of college basketball at the Division III level, and maybe period across all divisions in the last few decades. And WashU's women's basketball coach Nancy Fay joins me on the Hoopsville Hotline. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville once again.
Thanks, Dave. I'm excited to be on.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time to do so. First and foremost, congratulations on a terrific start to the season. Of course, being ranked top 5, not that surprising, but from your point of view, how has the season started?
I mean, obviously we're happy. I think we're just focusing in, like I think most teams at this time of year, you start out, you do a lot of practicing, and you just focus on getting better, whether it's each practice or each game, and I think that's worked well for us so far.
7-0 start to the season, wins over Lake Forest, Rose-Hulman, Southwestern Illinois College, and Illinois Wesleyan in a dominating fashion, I should point out. Win over Loris and a win over Webster as well. Got Milliken coming up here in 2 days on the schedule. Let me just focus on the Illinois Wesleyan game, if you don't mind. Certainly Illinois Wesleyan doesn't have the talent it had years ago when competing for national championships, but I think a lot of people would still expect that to be a little bit more of a competitive game. 82-59 probably tells us a different story. Of course, you guys played it. What was that game like?
Well, I think that's why you don't look at the scores at the end. We were down by 4 at halftime. The one thing, the longer I've coached, I think you respect programs and what coaches have done. And so, I think regardless, Maya does a great job at Illinois Wesleyan. Their style of play is very disruptive. She got a really nice young team, a couple of freshmen that gave us fits. So it was really not really indicative of how that game went. We were down, and we had to played a much better second half to give my kids credit, but it was a very competitive game.
Certainly, you guys like to test yourselves there because obviously you have conference challenges. I noticed a little difference in the schedule this year, and granted, a lot of stuff has changed in women's basketball. But you look at the out of conference, and anybody who doesn't know it well, I don't see anybody jumping out at me that is hugely challenging. Was that just? And again, it's on paper. I'm not talking about in reality here. But is that just kind of the way its schedule kind of came together this year? You got Millikan, Fontbonne, and Illinois or Iowa Wesleyan on the schedule ahead of you before you get into conference play. Was it just kind of just the way it fell into place this year?
Well, sometimes depending upon where you are in your region, and we're not located what you would say where there's a lot of Division III schools.
Correct.
And so two things have to happen. People want, you have to work out people playing you and you playing them. And our area being probably the southernmost part of the central region, you can't take your kids and travel them all over especially right now we're in finals. So it's important that we keep our kids academically close to home, and the Webster is in town, Fontbonne's in town, and it's what you have to do. If you live in the Chicago area, there's you have options all over the place to play, a lot of good quality in Wisconsin. And I think, that's one of the things you have to understand when you're making schedules. Division III is academic, and you have to make sure you take care of your students first. The Midwest Challenge with Illinois Wesleyan and Illinois College and DePauw. Illinois Wesleyan beat a very good DePauw team for us to get to them. And, Loris was a tournament team and a really good tournament team. And then we look at Millikan, who's 6-1 coming up, and also in that Wartburg tournament, who I believe is undefeated also. So, I mean, when you're scheduling a year out, you do what you can, but you also have to be sensitive to your academic situation, too.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And that's why I say on paper sometimes it doesn't hold out. And you never know. By the end of the season, one of these teams that you beat may turn into a juggernaut. And on paper flips it all over again as well. But obviously heading into Iowa, that not a place I've seen you guys play a lot. You're also branching out and playing new teams in some senses.
Well, you try to. It's just you want to make sure you get your percentages down for NCAA play. And so, I mean, there's every year changes, and whether it's your tournament that you bring people in. I mean, what's also happening is a lot of conferences are going to mega conferences where they're already playing competition in December, and we are not. Yeah. So it really narrows who you can actually play at that time, because next year I think it's Iowa and us that are the only teams that are not playing in the Iowa Conference. So it's moving to getting tougher and tougher to try to if you're not playing. We only play 14 games in the UAA, so it becomes more challenging.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, especially without the conference tournament, you guys are filling in more holes than most conference teams certainly have to. Let's talk about this team. Leading the way is Melissa Gilkey. She's one of, 6 or 7 seniors on this squad, leading the team at 19 points a game. Certainly things go through her. She's a pretty darn good talent, to say the least. Tell us a little bit about her and why the 6'1" senior is having such a dominating start to the year.
Well, I think there's players in your career as coaches that are they're special because when they come in, you already know they have the skill set, they work at it, and then there's ones that just keep getting better and aren't satisfied. And Melissa's one of those players. She came in. That senior group as a whole came in and put a lot of minutes in when they were young. When they were freshmen, they won some ball games for us. I don't think we thought we were going to win, but they didn't know any better, and they've just been building on that for the last 4 years. With Melissa, for instance, she didn't have a 3-point game and decided between her sophomore and junior year that she was going to become a 3-point shooter. And that kind of drive and intensity, that's not coached. That's just something that Melissa and we got fortunate to see grow over the last 4 years, and that's the special player we have there. But I think she's getting a lot of attention, and she understands that. And I think her ability to understand when doubles are coming, we need. You can't win with one kid, and I think we're doing a good job of countering that right now.
Yeah, and of course you do have other players who are contributing. Shouldn't take anything away, but seniors Maddie Sheppers and Alyssa Johansson certainly contributing as well. Part of that senior class you talk about. You have a lot of depth, but you are very senior loaded. Does this feel like a year you maybe want to try and take advantage of, or have to take advantage of?
I'm not sure if I understand. Take advantage of.
Take advantage of. Well, the fact you got this much senior experience, this much playing experience. Not just that they happen to rise into seniors, but they playing a lot. Do you feel like you got to take it? You want to take advantage of this? Get maybe back into the Final Four scenarios. Get a champion. I mean, does this feel like that kind of year?
I guess every year. I mean, and I'll watch you with a lot of other schools. I hope that we start out the year thinking that's a possibility, regardless. Sure. Special years, and when you have a senior loaded group, that's obviously. I know they're driven to try to return, but if I talked about last year's team and the year before, they'd feel the same way. I think when we start, we got 3 or 4 games left before conference. There's so much season left, and as you take step by step, I'm sure teams that have been able to get to a Final Four, they understand what that is to have that special season or that special group. Sometimes it's seniors, sometimes it's a mix. I don't think there's any equation to it, but I do know when you have this many seniors that they play with an abandon that they go, hey, this is it. So we're going to ride that wave, but it's way too early. We're just, we got Milliken next, and that's how we're looking at it.
Yeah, sure. You guys were so dominating for so long as a program. A lot has changed in women's basketball. I don't think it's has as much parity as it does on the men's side, but it certainly has a lot more parity than it did 5-10 years ago. It is tougher to win national championships now. From your vantage point, what has been the biggest change?
More little girls are playing basketball, and when more little girls are playing basketball, there's more talent out there. There's more opportunity for them to play at so many different places, and it's healthy. It's healthy in so many ways, and I think that's just it's taken time. It's here. It's only going to get better, and I think that's a really good thing for our game.
Just because it sounds like something would be fun to say. Are you itching to get a national championship? You haven't won one since 2010.
This isn't about me. This is about kids that haven't won a national championship or haven't been to a Final Four, haven't experienced that. The one thing I hope to offer them is, hopefully, what we can do to get back there. And so for me, every year it's that's what we want to do, but because it's for them, and that's why we all coach, and to hopefully give them that opportunity. So that's what I love about coaching. It's not what happened 10, 15 years ago. It's right now.
You've won more than 670 games at a clip of 85% winning percentage, 20 NCAA or UAA championships. I don't want to say this the way it's going to sound. It doesn't get old, but does it? Do you ever find something new? Is there ever something every year that just still surprises you, still catches you off guard?
Well, I think that's what's the exciting thing about coaching. It's every year there's a different makeup of a team. Even with these 6 seniors we've had in the program, they're different people than they were when they were freshmen. They're now leaders, and watching them grow and develop. And every year you bring another group in, and so. And I think the game itself, from times you're running the flex to now the dribble drive to, all these different, it's an education, to keep up with what's going on. But I think it's more the people that make it, every year exciting and not old. I think if it was, the same situation, same office job, same thing I was doing, you're right. But how can it get old with 18 to 22-year-olds? I just don't think it's possible.
Coach Strong at Scranton finally retired, and I say that only because a lot of people didn't know how long he would coach. Has it dawned on you or made you think, hey, now I can finally maybe catch him from the most wins in this division?
People will ask me, and this is not. I just don't pay. I appreciate all the wins. I appreciate all the kids that have played, but I just don't watch those numbers. I don't read the paper. I don't read. I just, that's what I love about where I'm at and what I do here. It's just the day to day, and I haven't he's had an incredible career, and I've known him, and I'm so happy for him. But what a great job he's done.
If you'd like, I'd be more than happy to pass on information to Chris Mitchell to pass on to you every week, just to remind you. I mean, be happy. Make it a little fun for you.
Well, I got enough. I'm sitting here breaking down film right now on Milliken, so I think I'd be too busy regardless.
Yeah,
so.
I can understand that. Let me switch gears quickly to the UAA. You guys off to that 7-0 start. NYU's off to an 8-0 start. Certainly they have had a number of good years. Rochester seems to be back maybe in the mix with an 8-1 start on the year. Carnegie Mellon is 7-1. Nobody's really off to a bad start. Chicago off to a tough one at 2-4. How do you see this conference breaking down this year?
Well, I think it's going to be. I mean, every year you look. I mean, I think it's really a healthy conference. I mean, even with Chicago, their strength of schedule has to be one of the tops in the country. So, it's what it is. I mean, I think we take a lot of pride in the coaches to, have a competitive conference, get people in the postseason that are deserving. And I mean, I've been we get all kind of caught up in our non-conference, but as I you start peeking and you're like, whoa, it's pretty impressive, the win-loss percentage right now on the women's side. So it's only going to be a battle. I mean, I'd probably get my too angst if I start looking at how everybody's doing yet. So I have a great deal of respect for all the coaches in the conference and how we do it. So I'm looking forward to the UAA starting soon.
And obviously you get to dabble back into the CCIW with your game coming up on Saturday against Milliken, as we mentioned, and then Fontbonne to wrap up the pre-Christmas schedule before getting back into work, as it were, on December 29th against Iowa Wesleyan out there in Waverly, in Iowa. And then conference play, and of course you start with Chicago. No surprise there, as it starts in that capacity on the road. Coach, appreciate you certainly taking the time to join us. Certainly love chatting WashU basketball. Quick question before I let you go. Have you introduced your brethren, Coach Edwards, to the word Central region just yet? Is he still figuring out he's in the Midwest or in the Central?
Yeah, I have enough to keep track of who I'm supposed to play and where I'm at. He's veteran enough. I'll let him handle all that.
Yeah, he'll figure it out eventually. Yes. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who are tuning in?
Just a great deal of respect for all you guys do, and looking forward for a great finish another season.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Coach. Good luck the rest of the way, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Nancy Fay joining us from WashU. Appreciate her taking the time. We'll be back with more Hoopsville. We'll talk to a team you may not have heard of very much. Certainly making waves, though, on the East Coast in the Skyline Conference. We'll talk to Yeshiva coming up here on Hoopsville. You'll listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
I know sports is important, but having the academic part along with it is a big plus.
I've discovered in myself, a newfound ability to overcome adversity at all different angles.
At a Division III school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual. The end result in my mind is you just become a very well-rounded person.
Before I came into college, I didn't really think I'd be able to balance so much. It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
With a D3 school, there's a lot of time for other opportunities. The coaches expect a lot of you during soccer, but after soccer, that's your own personal time to really find out who you are and other opportunities that you can pursue.
By balancing all of my interests, basketball, my leadership skills, and academics, I'm able to better prioritize my life and to manage it.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your December evening, December the 11th. If you've got questions for us or our guests, you can always tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com, or Facebook us at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. Time to chat with our final guest of the evening, and it's probably a school that hasn't really been talked about all that often in basketball. Certainly starting to change the perception, though, I would say, and especially in the skyline right now, I think everybody's looking at Yeshiva wondering how dangerous exactly are the Maccabees. So we figured we better get them on the show now and talk to them after a big win over Purchase a couple nights ago and a looming game against Purchase just a couple nights from now. And joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline now is Coach Elliot Steinmetz. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time. 7-3 start on the season, 5-1 already in Skyline Conference play. You've got wins over Gallaudet and Hunter, St. Joseph's of Long Island, win over Old Westbury and Maritime and Purchase and Mount St. Mary. You do have losses to Connecticut College, CCNY, and Sage. Mixed bag in there, but some impressive wins for a program that last year was 7-18, year before that 11-15, year before that 5-20. I mean, you guys are kind of trying to retool what you're all about.
Yeah, well, I think there's certainly been excitement about the new program, and we were able to really come in and get jump started, and I think a lot of that certainly is attributed to the newness and the excitement of having something new going on. That said, we have guys who are really buying in. They're working hard, and they're showing up every day early to practice and staying late and shooting, and then they're seeing the results early. And I think that's building confidence, which has been certainly fun to watch.
You're a first-year head coach, we should point out. Got hired back in April to take over this program. This is your alma mater. Played 3 seasons of basketball for the Maccabees. What's it mean to take over your alma mater, to try and move it forward as a program?
Well, it's an honor in a lot of ways. I mean, I was lucky enough to play for Coach Jonathan Halbert, about 99 to 2002, who was there for about 42 years before me, who's certainly a legendary name in New York basketball and somebody that I've always looked up to. And it's he built this program from the ground up, and I'm just fortunate and honored and in a way awed to have the opportunity to try to bring it forward.
When you look at what you had ahead of you, what was your simplistic goal for this season?
It was probably just 500 and try to see what we can build and see what we can bring in coming up next year. We didn't have a lot of time, obviously, to really recruit and then retool this year, and we were trying to bring in a little bit of a new system, change things up, and play a different style, and kind of see if we could attract some new talent to come in and join us. And it's certainly been a very good start.
Yeah, it's certainly a good start. I mean, when you're hired, you don't get a huge chance to recruit. You get a little bit of recruiting in there. Obviously, Yeshiva in general brings in its own style of players. You're being a Jewish school, kind of like a Hope or a Calvin or a Messiah, which has a specific demographic you're looking for. Some of the recruiting is both taken care of for you and out of your hands. How is that? How do you broach that? I mean, are you specifically looking for Jewish players to come in? Do you have the option to do more than that? What is your shtick, as it were, for lack of a better description, to get recruits and help move this program forward?
Well, I think when you have something like that where you're to a certain extent restricted, like you said, in your demographic, you can look at it obviously in 2 ways. You can look at it as a disadvantage or a benefit. Mm-hmm. I try to look at it as a benefit, and I look at it as we have a niche world where we can really pull players from. There's an entire league of Jewish high schools in the metropolitan area. Mm-hmm. There's an entire world of Jewish high schools across the country that I think are not really tapped into by a lot of schools, and maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot a little bit, opening up the world to them. But the opportunity is there to find certainly Division III caliber players, and over the years there have been some Division II and Division I players coming out of those schools as well. Is something that we really, I think, have an advantage to get to, being that it's a Jewish school.
This team certainly has a lot of depth in sense of years. You only have one freshman on the squad, a number of sophomores and juniors, and a handful of seniors. You're led this year already by Shelby Rosenberg, 18.5 points a game. Benji Ritholtz at 17.8, 10.5 from Michael Berg. You're getting already a lot of contributions in some big games for you guys from these players. It almost feel like a shot in the arm for the program?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we're certainly getting out and running. We're definitely putting up our share of shots, and it's funny. You look at a game like last night. We played last night, and we put up 78% field goal percentage in the second half. It's just you look at the rest of the numbers and who's scoring, and it almost just follows with. But we've been shooting at a high percentage, and probably won't last forever. But I think first time around the league, we've kind of surprised a couple of teams, and certainly some very good coaches in our league. And second time around, I'm not really expecting it to be. I wouldn't call it easy first time around, but I imagine it'll be even harder the second time around.
And obviously, with the holidays, you have to kind of put a lot of games early on in the season. But I find it interesting. You guys get a very good win on December 8th against SUNY Purchase, a team that's certainly depleted with injuries. I've seen them twice, but they're dangerous at the same time. You then get to face off against them 6 days later. Granted, you got the win on the road. They got to come to your place. That's a little quirk in the schedule that not everybody would see in conference play. How do you kind of get used to the fact that you're seeing a team twice in a week?
Yeah, that's not easy. I mean, it's obviously gives them certainly a quick turnaround, and they'll still have that taste in their mouth, which is not going to help us. They're going to be that's an angry group probably coming in on Sunday, and it took us playing a real good game up there. That's a very talented and well coached group, and it took us playing a really solid game up there to really come out of there, with the W. And yeah, I mean, Sunday it'll be right back at it, and if the game goes the same way, it can obviously fall out on either side in terms of the result, but it was certainly a fun game to be a part of, and a little bit of back and forth at the end, and it's a good quality win certainly for our program this year.
And of course, back that up with the win against Mount St. Mary. Again, you're going to take on Purchase on Saturday. When you look at this Skyline Conference, I know you're familiar with it, but you're new to it in the coaching realm of things. Mount St. Vincent's on top with Sage. Then you guys are sitting right there. Of course, you played most of the games because you're going to have a chunk of time up here where you can't play any games, so a lot of this can change. But to start 5-1, to put yourselves in that spot for the first 6 games of the conference, that's got to be really reassuring when you look at the second half of the conference schedule.
Yeah, no, it's a confidence builder, and I think it was important. We came in with a system in mind, and I brought in an assistant coach, Yogi Verdugo from Florida, who really is one of the best I've seen in terms of skill development, and it's really allowed our guys to take a step forward in terms of their skills and their confidence, and I think we're playing with a certain amount of confidence right now that hopefully will carry through to the second half. And I think it's really been the reason, the commitment that the guys have had and the work ethic and the ability for them to show up and buy into what we're trying to give them. It got them off to the start, and hopefully the confidence kind of flows through to the second half.
Obviously, with your scheduling, you have limitations. Friday night sundown to Saturday night sundown. You can't even play. Hanukkah, you certainly can't play on. I find it interesting. You'll sneak a game in against Lehman on the 16th before. No, you're playing that after sundown on Hanukkah.
Yeah, we can play it. Hanukkah, we can play.
Okay, but you don't play another game until so that's December 16th. You don't play another game until January 22nd. Tell everybody the reason behind that big gap.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with more so with school than it is with holidays. It's they have a very Yeshiva is a top 50 academic program in the country, and they have a very rigorous final schedule. So we certainly are trying to avoid killing them during the finals and their breaks. Obviously they have a very, very small winter break at Yeshiva because of the Jewish holidays that come up in different times of the year. There's a long Jewish holiday break in October and another one around March or April for various holidays where there's just no school. They can't have any classes or anything. And because of that, they have a very short winter break where they're literally only getting 10 to 12 days off for winter break. And I think they try to avoid having games during that time so that they can actually have some time off.
I was going to ask, though, you go 5 weeks between games, though, December 16th to January 22nd. How are you going to keep the team kind of rolling along?
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. We kind of restricted their break a little bit in terms of the team, and we're going to certainly practice through finals. It'll be a little bit of a modified schedule. We will do the best we can to get some scrimmages going in practice, and keep the guys fresh. And for the week or so that they're away, we'll have a mandatory workout program, obviously, for them to follow. And hey, these are the cards we're dealt. We don't complain. We'll turn around and do the best we can with it.
Yeah, 12 games before the holiday break. That's a lot more than most people play. That's half your schedule in the first few weeks of the season, and before turning around and having a little bit more of a more modern schedule, as it were. Second half, you just have those 5 weeks off. Do you dare look forward? Do you dare look ahead and go, hey, we started 7-3. We're 5-1 in the conference. We might be able to do something special this year. Do you dare do that, or is this one game at a time?
It's one game at a time. I mean, we got purchased on Sunday, and we're very well aware of what they can do. I look at our stats, and we're giving up 74 points a game, and we got to figure out a way to make that lower. And we're shooting the ball about 50% from the field, but we're turning it over 15 or 16 times a game. And I'm saying to myself, if we can knock that down by 5 or 6, that's another 10, 12 points we could be scoring. So there are a lot of little things I think we need to clean up before we can even think that high of in terms of the results and in terms of a goal.
What do you hope you can accomplish as head coach of this program in the long term?
In the long term, the goal is like anywhere else. You want to make it. You want to win the skyline. You want to get to the NCAA tournament, and eventually you want to build a program that can compete for a national championship. And those are lofty goals. But if you don't start somewhere and you don't have something to aim for, then why are you there?
Yeah, certainly true. How much can you fall back on your playing days?
I mean, I was lucky enough to play for Coach Halpert, so I think there's a lot that I can draw from what I've learned from him, whether it's playing or over the years having conversations with him. I'll be honest with you, I feel like I barely even remember my playing days anymore. But there's certainly, the conference has changed. It used to be with Manhattanville and Kings Point over in Great Neck. Used to be at the top of that conference, and that's certainly changed over the years in terms of the teams that are involved. You'll always have, I guess, the Mount St. Vincent and Old Westbury that have been around, and St. Joe's, who has been around forever. But it's definitely different. I think honestly, I think the level is a little higher now than it was when I played. And there's not much to draw on, and I feel very very much removed from those days. But certainly the lessons that I learned from Coach are things that I'm able to use throughout my coaching, whether it was in the high school level or now at the college level.
Well, congratulations on a terrific start. As we mentioned, 7-3, big game coming against Purchase in a rematch of the game played 6 days prior. As we've mentioned, coming up here, certainly love to see how the Maccabees do as you head into the break. Certainly congratulations on the 5-1 start in the Skyline as well. Certainly love to see schools like yourselves making headlines in Division III. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I think it's flattering for me certainly, and for our program to have the opportunity to get a little bit of a spotlight. Our guys are working hard, and our athletic department and our AD Joe Bednarsh have been extremely supportive of the program and what we're trying to build. And I think the opportunity to kind of get that message about the school out there is really tremendous. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Good luck the rest of the season, especially those 5 weeks off, as it were. And we'll look forward to talking to you soon, I hope.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Elliot Steinmetz joining us from Yeshiva. I certainly appreciate him taking the time to join us. When we come back, we wrap up the show and wrap up the 2014 side of the season, and we'll look forward to what we're expecting in the coming weeks over the holiday breaks. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful evening. I want to thank all of our guests for appearing on the show. Certainly was a good show tonight. Lots to talk about, to say the least. And speaking of which, we started the show talking about how we were guaranteed 4 of the top 5 were going to lose in men's basketball this weekend. This week. No matter how it worked out, with 3v5, WashU versus Illinois Wesleyan taking place this weekend, we are guaranteed 4 losses in the top 5. We got our 5th loss tonight, though it's the same team twice. Amherst loses to number 23 Babson at home. Second loss in a row at home for the Lord Jeffs, who lose 68-49. Think about that now. They have lost 2 games in a row at LaFrac by an average of 19.5 points. That's incredible. 39-point total losses in the last 2 games for the Lord Jeffs. You know Coach Hickson will probably get things solved relatively quickly, but I don't think anybody saw that coming. Granted, I think Babson at 23 is a little underrated. I've got them far higher, though I've been nervous. This game now at least makes me feel better about that. Are they a top 10 team? I don't know. I don't have my sheet, I don't think, close enough to me to tell you what I did. But wow, Babson with a big victory tonight. That's going to go a long way. For Amherst, who had 11 first-place votes and were 7 points out of first place this week, they are now 5-2. They will take on... They are off until the 30th. When they get into some landmark action, they will take on Drew on December 30th at Drew. They will then play at Goucher on the 2nd on the D3 Hoops schedule that's marked as a non-region game. That is a regional game, just in case anybody is curious. It is a regional game. Forgive me, I got my earbuds backwards. They will then work their way back north. They'll then take on Eastern Connecticut in a span of a week. So I suspect the Lord Jeffs will probably be on the road the entire time. No point in going back and forth from Drew back up to Amherst, back to Baltimore, back up to Amherst, back to Connecticut, back up to Amherst. They'll probably maybe drop by Amherst on the way to go to Hamilton on the 9th before playing Williams on the 10th, I would suspect, coming from Eastern Connecticut. But a tough stretch there if you're the Lord Jeffs. I will see Coach Hickson and the Lord Jeffs in that at Goucher, obviously on January 2nd. We will hopefully get an interview with him at that time as well. But 2 losses in a row for the Lord Jeffs to close out the 2014 season, technically the part of the season. Yes, Drew is still in 2014, but they are off now for the next 18 days. So this break, they lose 2 in a row going into that. They will then take on Drew on the 30th of December. That is pretty surprising. For Babson, on the other hand, they are now 8-1. Their lone loss coming to Bates at home, 54-51. That game, that loss, happening in regulation. It wasn't overtime or anything. They are off until the 31st when they take on Colby. So a great finish for them. They have wins over Bowdoin and Tufts, Amherst, Babson, showing that they are just that good this year, to say the least. So pretty impressive for Babson and pretty interesting for Amherst. You're going to have 18 days to think about a 2-game losing stretch. You're either going to come out fired up, or those 18 days are going to kind of have you ho-hum just a little bit. A reminder, we are off the air for the rest of 2014 in the live sense, or at least our weekly shows. There's just no way next week, while I'm down in Salem, Virginia for the Stag Bowl and Gallardi Trophy presentations, that we can put a show on. We have tried in the past. It's just not going to happen. Let's be realistic. So we were off, and then we're off, obviously. We're not going to be on the air for Christmas. And then the following week, we're actually going to be in Las Vegas, or really it'll be January 1st, so we'll just gotten back from Las Vegas. We will be conducting interviews and Hoopsville Corner interviews throughout the week there of the 14 games, 5 to be played on the 28th, 5 to be played on the 29th, and 4 to be played on the 30th. Pat Coleman and myself will also be joined by Justin Sweeney to broadcast those games, but we'll conduct those interviews in the meantime. So look out for those. Those will kind of tide you over until we are back on the air January 4th. That is a Sunday. We start our Sunday-Thursday schedule at that point, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern for all of those, all the way through March. Don't forget, we have special shows to come up. We'll have our 12-hour marathon. Date to be determined. It will most likely be on a Thursday. I suspect it'll be the 29th. That's off the top of my head. We'll also talk. We'll have extended shows, obviously, around the end of the postseason or regular season, as well as we get ready for postseason basketball. That's our usual. We'll talk more about that down the road. Also, probably have our fundraiser back up and running, though it won't be as nearly as grandiose, I think, as last year's. But we'll certainly do it. We'll see how the reaction is to that. So on and so forth. Also, we are hoping to hit the road at least maybe once in January. Outside chance of another road trip in February. And there's always an outside chance of a third trip in there, certainly. But so keep an eye. Here's the trick. We were talking to some people, and we think this might be fun. We don't think we're going to tell you where we're going. That's the trick. You're going to have to follow us on Twitter and see where we show up to games and find out what interviews we may conduct. Again, that might end up meaning one of our Sunday Hoopsville shows that we normally do may not air normally because we will have been doing interviews throughout a weekend, but we'll stay in touch with that and let you know. So keep in touch on all that. We'll see how it goes as we get closer to that. But again, look for us to be on the road sometime in the near future as well. Trying to think if there's other little details we got to get going here. If you have any questions for us, even when we're off the air, you can tweet us at D3Hoopsville or use the hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, Facebook us, facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. A couple side notes, other programming notes not related to Hoopsville. Don't forget it, coming up a week from yesterday, so in 6 days, on Wednesday, December 17th, we will be live with a YD3 show and D3Football.com presentation of the Ghilardi Trophy. That will take place live in Salem. I will be your host to start the show, and then Frank Rossi and Pat Coleman will take over and drive the ship the rest of the way. That is coming up again on Wednesday, December 17th. Don't forget, we'll also have wall-to-wall Stag Bowl coverage coming up on the 19th on game day from Salem, Virginia. Again, the D3Hoops.com Classic from South Point Arena coming up in Las Vegas. That is the 28th, 29th, and 30th. We will be there. If you are there, let us know. We would certainly love to see what fans are out there and so on and so forth. We'll be covering some good basketball. I mean, remember, number 1 FDU Florham is going to be there in women's basketball, along with Stevens Point, and I believe it's either Whitewater or Oshkosh. I think it's Oshkosh on the women's side of things. Whitewater was there last year. I don't think they're coming back. Though it will be a little strange not to see Ramapo's men's basketball team there. Little inside joke there with Coach McBreen there at Ramapo. Hampton-Sydney will be there on the men's side, for example. Hanover, who's made some waves early this year, is back for another tour at the D3Hoops.com Classic. A reminder, if you're interested in participating in the D3Hoops.com Classic, let us know. It is a traditional tournament. Sports Tours runs it, and we certainly look forward to their hospitality, as always, at the South Point Arena. I think that's going to do it for us. It has been a crazy start to this season, to say the least, especially on the men's side tonight, showing you again. Amherst losing for their second time in a row as the number 2 team in the country, losing to Brandeis and now Babson. Babson's actually now won back-to-back appearances at LaFranc Gymnasium as well. So, craziness. And we've already had 3 different number 1s. We're bound to have a 4th. I mean, if you look at the top 25 on the men's side, does that mean WashU? Should they beat Illinois Wesleyan? Let's say Illinois Wesleyan beats WashU. Now you got to pick them for number 1. I think WashU is about the only one who's a legitimate number 1. Even I will consider them, though I have them much lower in my poll than some others do. But if they beat Illinois Wesleyan and are the last man standing, maybe they should be the number 1 team. But if they were to lose, let's just argue that Illinois Wesleyan beats WashU on Saturday, nobody in the top 10 except for Richard Stockton's undefeated, which it means, in my opinion, it's a pick-em for number one. Yeah, I think you're going to have voters all over the place. You saw it a little bit with 3 teams getting first-place votes this week. You're going to be all over the place, in my opinion. I think everyone's going to try and is going to be grasping to figure out who the number one team in the country is when the poll comes out on Monday. And certainly more questions beyond that. So it's a year of the questions. It's a year of the upsets. It's a year of not really having anybody in men's basketball standing head and shoulders above everybody else. It's just that simple. I don't know if that means everybody's come down a level or people have risen. I don't know. I don't know what that really means. But certainly going to be fascinating to watch this finish. And like I said, if this is how it's beginning, at the end of the season, we might be wide open for a men's bracket that you just can't go, oh, they're getting, I mean, granted, we have to figure out how it looks in a bracket to begin with. But usually you can kind of go, I think these 2 teams got the best chance at Salem. This year we might be going, I don't know who goes to Salem. It's wide open. It's going to be whoever survives. We're going to get tough matchups early on because everybody's beating everybody. Not because it's unfair, but because everybody is beating everybody. We're going to have tough matchups this year. Plain and simple. It's going to be probably the deepest men's basketball championship tournament we've had in a long time. And then on the women's side, it's getting deeper there too. You heard Coach Nancy Fay talking about it. It is not, cut and dry anymore. There's a lot more women who play very good basketball in this country, especially at Division III. I was actually talking to a parent the other day whose daughter transferred from Division II to Division III, and he said he was at one of their games. And he said their opponent was like a Division II team. It was a Division III team, but the opponent was a Division II team in the sense of how they were built, how they played, how they executed. And I said to him, yes, Division III's got really good basketball on the men's and women's side. It's just not appreciated. People automatically assume that because it's Division III, it's not that good. We all know, and I'm preaching to the choir to those who out there who certainly know Division III as well as I do, Division III teams can play with the Division IIs and the Division Is. It just depends on the matchups. We got some really good basketball going on around the country. My hope to you during the holidays is if you've got a game near you, go watch it. Go check it out. Go see some of the top teams. I'm going to get a chance to see Amherst. I'm also going to get a chance to see FDU Florham, Hamden Sydney, Oshkosh and Stevens Point on the women's side, Hanover on the men's side, even Husson, who is a team that wanted a lot of respect last year. I'm going to get a chance to see these teams. You should go out. Granted, don't travel like I do. I'm not saying go crazy here. But if you got games near you, go check it out. Go to a gym. Watch these teams play. Enjoy what you're getting this chance to see. And even watch games that have nothing to do with maybe your team. Go and get a chance. There are pockets where there are games easily available. Where I am, I can go an hour or so and hit all kinds of gyms. Take advantage of that. Go do it yourself. Enjoy this. This may be one of the most interesting years we've had in a very long time. Take advantage of it. Go out and watch the games yourself. And of course, take advantage of web streams as well. So that's going to do it for 2014 here on the show. Again, we'll be doing a ton of interviews when we're in Vegas. That will kind of be our tide over until we get back on the air on January 4th. And again, when we hit the air January 4th, which is a Sunday, we'll be on the air for the most part every Sunday and every Thursday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. There's going to be some variations in that, and we'll certainly keep you abreast of those. If you have questions for us when we're not on the air, or you have guest ideas, or whatever the case may be, tweet us at D3Hoopsville. Use the hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Also, don't forget podcasts. If you missed any of this show, you can watch it on demand on YouTube. You can also listen to it on podcasts via SoundCloud at this time. We're also hoping by the new year we'll be able to get iTunes up and running as well. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in to start of this season. Keep abreast of everything at d3hoops.com and, of course, using the hashtag D3H on Twitter as well. I want to thank all of my guests tonight. It was a terrific show, and we got some great guests who were willing to take the time to join us, and we certainly appreciate that, including Lynchburg's Hillary Scott, Brandeis's Brian Meehan, of course, Salisbury women's basketball coach Kelly Lewandowski, WashU's women's basketball coach Nancy Fay, and Yeshiva's men's basketball coach Eric Steinmetz. We appreciate their time, appreciate their SIDs, helping us get them on the air as well. That's going to do it for us here on Hoopsville, which is presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. I hope all of you have a wonderful holiday season, no matter what you celebrate or maybe what you don't celebrate, and also have a happy new year. We'll certainly see you in the new year, and you'll see us back on the air in bits and pieces at D3Hoops.com.classic in Las Vegas. Thanks again for your patronage, and we'll see you guys back here in the new year here on Hoopsville.